Welcome, welcome, welcome to You Mad Huh, the podcast conceived out of brotherhood and presented with love. This is our final uh, episode where we will dive into who we are, and we want to cover our lives after college, and where that has taken us. So to kick this off, Rich is going to give us give us his story on what he's, where life has taken him since college. Uh, does he feel like college was worth it? Does he feel like going to an HBCU helped him at some point? So, Rich, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I was telling the guys before we got started with the broadcast that there was one story that I wanted to share that I recalled after the fact from college. I worked multiple jobs while I was in school. And I think that, as much as I didn't like it because it really kept me from being as focused in my books as I should have been, there were some good experiences. But I wanted to share, I worked at a place called RPS in Kernersville. The guys are smiling because they probably may have done it themselves or heard of other guys that were doing it. Yep. And we had the third shift. So we were getting off at like 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. So one morning, it's me and two other guys from A&T. And we are leaving. And I can remember it vividly that one of those small town sheriff's cops had nothing to do because he was shining his light in a used car parking lot when we came around the corner to get to the bridge. And before we could get all the way to the exit to get on 40, headed back, we got pulled right there on the bridge. I was doing regular speed. Guy gets out, comes to the car, white cop, and he says, license registration. I grab it and I say, well, what did I do? What's wrong? And he says, we don't take kindly to strangers. So that was my first experience with DWB. I mean, it wasn't my first racial experience, but it was my first DWB experience. And in the midst of that, when he went back to the car to make sure my paperwork was correct, the other two gentlemen were the ones that had sound advice. They were, because the whole time I was indignant. I was ready to march on the bridge. And they were like, man, if you don't shut up, we try to get back to campus, bro. Right. You need to shut up and just do whatever he tells you to do. And there was some wisdom in that. Had I had any sense in the moment, I would have looked for his badge, asked for his badge, and just been professional about it, and then brought it up to the proper people.
Just trying to get home.
I share that story to make it clear that although I come across at times, I can be dismissive. People think that I don't realize that race still plays a role. I just don't believe it is as prominent as it was for our fathers, our mothers. Now, some believe in the moment that we're in. Yeah, he's got to check his glasses. That it's the same exact thing, and I don't believe that. But I move on.
Hey, Rich.
Yeah.
Did you say this is some bullshit?
Oh, I was upset. So after college, meandered. I talked about how it took me a while to mature, to be ready for interviews. I can remember going to an interview and not trying to secure the position, but being excited about when it was over. So what I took from that as I got older and realized that's not a way to get a job is you want to, first of all, I talked about making sure you're in good contacts with the people at the school based on your major. Make sure that you do practice interviews. You can never practice interviews enough, right? And to maybe even take Toastmasters, things that will help you in conveying what it is. I mean, I was so adamant after figuring it out that my sons will tell you when I was sitting in here fixing them breakfast, I made them jokers watch CNBC. They were pissed. And I don't know how much they got from it. But, you know, if you're going to go into the realm of business, if you're going to go work for a Fortune 500, you need to know the lingo. You need to know what things are coming that business's way. You need to be able to talk the talk so that you belong, right? You need to be able to be an asset in regards to information, understanding what the objectives of the business are, things of that nature. So I got a job. Shortly after that, Paul's mother introduced me to my wife. It was a blind date. Been married 27 years. She's an ex-cheerleader for the University of Kentucky. She cheered on the squad that Leitner.
Turnaround shot.
Yeah. And she said that was a quiet bus ride back home.
I bet it was.
And I don't think that cheerleaders really rode with the players that much, but I think it was in the area, so it was a joint bus ride. I don't know. She was saying that Patino wasn't playing that. HBCU was an awesome experience. Really enjoyed it. But I actually think that some of my greatest growth occurred in risk taking. Like 3 years into my marriage, I attempted to take on some rental properties. And, you know, I got caught up now in these 4 a.m. infomercials. Low income people need houses too. So I went and got these houses in areas that were very, very, you know, they were a little, you know, they were not the most ideal for finding people with 700 credit, right? And I would recommend, if you're going to take risk in an area where you can get high level clientele to stay in your property. I mean, I got a 4 a.m. phone call from one of my places because the toilet was singing, and I told the lady to jiggle the handle and I'll see her tomorrow. So I just, my thing is, when you take risks, it forces you to be more aware and in tune with what's going around you, what's going on around you, in my opinion. That is, if you're trying to keep from sinking. Now, I sunk horribly with it, but I wouldn't be where I am from looking at economics and things of that nature and taking risks had I not taken those risks. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think anybody that comes out of school, be a monster outside of the job that you have taken on. Be a monster, be an entrepreneur. Do something outside of whatever is your main income, because again, it forces you. I'm seeing a couple of head shakes. Y'all, I mean, I'm assuming that you guys agree. When you put yourself out there risk-wise, it forces you to be a little bit more in tune and to keep your eyes open for opportunities. I think I've hit on what you were wanting us to share out there, Paul. I don't know if I've missed anything, but
can I talk a little bit about just your journey with your sons in sports? Because you have a son that plays professional basketball in Europe, and I know we talk about sports a lot. A lot of people don't have that type of insight. So kind of give them a little bit, just a quick background on your, you know, the journey in sports that you've taken with your sons. And you have one that loves sports, one that doesn't. So
you guys know that I tried out for A&T. I was delusional. I really had no business out there. But what I learned from it, being in those workouts, seeing these D1 athletes and what it took to be different in regards to special, I soaked it up because I'd always thought I was a decent athlete. But I learned, you know, hey, you're not. But in the midst of that, I coached my son in Little League, won some championships, coached him AAU, coached some of the guys. And I found myself implementing certain conditioning and workouts that I had picked up trying out for A&T's football. So that was very priceless. Even though I failed in it, I learned so much. So if there's something that somebody likes doing, try it. I mean, I don't regret trying out. I just regret how delusional I was and not taking advantage of the opportunity to be a film man. But because of that experience, I was honest with my sons. That's one of the things I think, coaching kids and seeing some of these parents, there's a level of, naivete. They don't realize what it takes to be on that level. There's a lot of work. It was a lot of work involved in getting him to where the coach had no other choice. He was the best ball handler. He's probably the third best shooter. He deserved to be on the floor, and therefore he got to play. But that's not it.
I think knowing that you've had that experience, going through multiple colleges as well, and he's actually reached his dream. We talk about sports. You've got some firsthand experience. So thanks. I appreciate that, Rich.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So I think I'll jump in next and just kind of run through, my life after college, what happened with me. You guys have known that I wasn't particularly, pressed about college per se, or even, reaching a certain level of status in life per se necessarily. But we graduated. I didn't have a job. I was working at Pizza Hut. Rich was there. A couple of other people we know working at Pizza Hut. And this is in the day where you would look in the newspaper for jobs, right? And I had a couple of internships in college. I really didn't like corporate environment. I probably everybody else on those internships, but I just did not like the corporate environment. And I have to tell this story just really quick. And here's one of the reasons why I don't. So there's another kid in my accounting class who had been at this company the year before. They loved him. They loved this guy, right? Yeah, he did. Fred, I think he was our frat brother Brand T's cousin, maybe. I can't remember. But we were in class, right? Accounting class. And we had a test coming up. And this is why I despise like corporate environment. So she says, we got this test. And then he asked the teacher in the most eloquent way possible to give us the answers to the test. And as he's asking this question, I'm like, he's actually asking her to give us the answers to this test. And she didn't really balk at it, but I'm just like, I can't. I just can't.
This was at the job?
No, this was in an accounting class at A&T in school. Right. So this is a guy who they love in corporate America. He's done these great whatevers. But I'm like, it's a test. Take the test like everybody. And he's like, give us the answers. But he said it so smooth, and he used such big words and said it so nicely.
Did he wink a lot when he said? Did he do a lot of that when he talked?
No, but I don't know if anybody else caught it, because I'm looking around at everybody in the class. I'm like, did y'all just hear him ask this question?
Hey, Ty, do you see anything wrong with this right now?
I'm still trying to see what the problem is. I mean, I'm waiting for him to
give me the answers. He said he
Get that point. I'm
You're gonna actually ask the teacher, give us all the answers to this test. I'm like, get out. But that's what
bugs travelers won't, at least the teacher will.
Corporate America, that's called a strategy.
What's it called? Strategy.
I'm not mad.
Initiative. Look, he tried. I guess he tried, but I'm like, dog, this is just take the test. But anyway. So I this is the day you look through the paper to get a job. So I finally got this interview with this company. Got a job. It was called the Audit Bureau of Circulations. It was out of Schaumburg, Illinois. So this is one of my first times going out of. Well, not my first time going out of state. I've been out of state plenty of times, but having a job out of state. There was 100% travel, right?
Wow.
And this is where, when I was in the orientation, where I'm looking around to people and I'm like, they're not that smart. After we kind of gone through some stuff, and they, did the homework anyway. So I did that for about a year and 3 months. And with that job, you would do audits of these magazines and newspapers, right? So if you had magazines, you'd go somewhere for like 5 or 6 months, right? Newspapers, you traveled you moved every day. So I was magazines, which is cool. So I was in New Jersey and Philadelphia, and the work environment was almost like a call center in terms of the people that were working there, right? So you got to see like real working class people in, South Jersey, right? Tampa, I was in Tampa as well. So you got to see real, just everyday working class people. So that was very interesting. Actually, I used to stay at this hotel that was right beside NFL Films, which was interesting. But either way,
That's neat.
now this is where I first met a guy in terms of when it came to someone being responsible about money. It was a guy named Douglas Reisenberg, and he was a Jewish guy. So when I got my little check, I bought a car. I bought a Baxter. I'm like, I'm going to be on the road. I want a decent car, right? Doug, I think he's from New Jersey or New York. He got this little bitty Corolla, and he was like, I'm saving every dime I can, right? So I really should have taken some cues from Doug, but that's the first person I saw that was really trying to build wealth over time, build money over time. Because you had no expenses, and you could go home twice a month. They fly you home twice a month. I remember Marcus. That was when they were doing U.S. Air was like you buy a ticket, get a ticket free. So me and Marcus flew back for homecoming. So we were living it. I was living it. I was having a good time. But anyway, I just didn't like the job. It just wasn't interesting. So I quit that. And I was like, I'm just going to sit around for a while. And just one more thing during that time, I picked up a lot of weight. I was getting big. And I looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, dude, you're not going to make it to 35 if you keep this up. So I bought a bicycle, and I just started riding this bicycle every day. So, when it comes to weight struggles and just being convicted about something, I was like, I'm going to do this every day. And I remember there's one day I didn't want to go. I didn't want to ride the bike. And I said, let me get my ass out here anyway. And then every day after that, it was easier. So just getting over that one little hump was enough, right? No pun intended. But anyway, so I quit that job. I just didn't like the work. The travel was cool, was fine. That's when I met my wife, actually. So I was like, I'm gonna chill out for a few months, and I was running out of money, and I went to a football game with our frat brother, and he said, hey, he called my wife over. He was talking to her, and I was like, she thinks she's cute, right? So I was like, whatever, man. She thinks she's cute, man. But I didn't have a job.
Great pickup line.
Well, I didn't say that to her face, but after she left, I was like, I told Banty, I was like, she thinks she's cute, man. I was like, whatever. But anyway,
did you ever not say that about, I mean, that's a Paul, like, or
no,
That's a Paulism.
So when she came up to us and was talking to us, she left, and then she came back by, and she just threw her hand up like she was, I was like, she thinks she's cute or something, right? So
she didn't have time for you peasants.
That's exactly what it seemed like. And I was like, get out of here with that, man. Now, granted, I didn't have a job. I had no money, so I was a peasant. Exactly. Now, here's the thing, though. She liked me, even though I didn't have a job. I remember she took me to a Japanese steakhouse. And I was like, I don't have any money. She was like, well, I'm taking you. I was like, shit, this might work out. You never know. You never know. But anyway, so I ended up I got a job, and I want to show you guys this because we talk about various work environments, right? So I got this job in a local company. I've always, since college, I've worked with smaller to mid-sized companies. So this is the building that my first job, my second job out of high school, this is where it was located. This is the building. It was built from this is not an old house. The owner built this from the ground up, right? I'm the only Black person that works there.
So it looked like a plantation.
Exactly. It was called Magnolia Manor, right? So that was my second job.
House. I mean, when you were like the butler or something, what was it?
No.
Oh my God.
Did they call you Vincent?
Hey,
like a butler or something?
Hey, this introduced me to small business in America. In the 80s, when depreciation became a big thing, he developed his own software. So he was the developer of this software. A lot of the people that were still there had have been with the business since it started. So I kind of got to see what that environment was like. Like they said, when they were the early days, they would take off Fridays and buy like a case of beer and just drink the afternoon or whatever. But this is where I saw how small business works. So I've seen relatives get hired, people that friends of friends get hired. So when we talk about proximity to opportunity, I've seen that firsthand. At one point, the owner's daughter was my office mate, right? So I mean, I've seen that firsthand. But I've also seen a varied work environment. Like two of my office mates at one point were gay. So I've interacted with people, different backgrounds, different. We had some people that worked there that were actually functioning cocaine addicts that I found out later. I'm not lying. So working in that small environment was very enlightening, to say the least. Now, over time, that company has been bought different times. So the company got larger. We got bought by a company out of Raleigh, and that was another family-owned company, a larger company. But that opened my eyes to some things as well, in terms of how businesses are run. Also, like for example, the owners, they bought and sold many companies, like $100 million companies. So when you meet these people, they're not just sitting in an office away from everybody. You see them on a regular basis. They were Jewish family, but they were always, to be honest with you, they were always great to me. And the funny thing is, as I was working there, my boss told me, the company that hired me before that, where you saw the plantation, she was like, "You work for a racist company." She came out and blatantly told me that. Not because of the home, but apparently something she had seen or something.
Yeah, the home.
The what?
The home.
I know, right? Well, that's the thing. Like she had some hard information though. Like, I knew the people that worked there were, they were nice enough. There were some cool people that worked there too. There were people that were very nice, but there were some people you knew that, like, I know they're definitely Trump people, and that's it. No disrespect, man. But so I still work there. I still work for that company. I've been there for, I don't know, maybe 30 years. Just and what I do for my job is I train on accounting software. I also do consulting on our software. So I'm going on site to companies. I've worked at, with a lot of larger companies all across the country, outside of the country as well. So I've gotten to see, small to medium to large size companies and what I do. So that's why when we talk about, these funds that are being cut for different projects, we work with a lot of construction companies, and a lot of those are smaller to mid-sized family-owned businesses. But you see how wealth has been garnered over generations with these companies. I went to one company where they essentially ran the whole town. The kids were lawyers. They ran this construction company, paving company. They owned the car dealership. They were involved in the local administration of the town. So you see these things, and when people talk about, having power, I've seen some of that firsthand. So that's why I bring that up. In terms of when it comes to sports and stuff, motocross is my thing. Dirt bikes is my thing. But I've also got the chance to see the inner workings of that sport as well. Some of the people that I've met, some of the people on, a more personal level that run the sports on a large scale, that own the series. And I've seen, the inner workings of some of this stuff. So, it's not usually as professional as people think. Just like businesses are not as professional as people think, especially small businesses. I've seen some crazy stuff go on. But motocross is a thing. And then with football, sports, my son played football. He never got to the pro level or really even the college level almost. He was a walk-on at a college. But when it comes to, we talk about these high schools, NIL, all that stuff. My son has friends that are, played a fairly high level, power forward. You see a lot of kids that do make it. My son worked out with with some high level players. That's why I see the difference is not as great as people think. A lot of it's opportunity and getting in the right situation. But that's kind of my sports background and just what I've seen with that. But that's kind of my journey after college.
Hey, quick question, Paul.
Good stuff.
Yep.
One of your co-workers wouldn't happen to be the current Department of Health and Human Services director with it.
Why you ask that?
Just ask.
Why you ask?
He said people were doing coke, man.
Oh, that's right. That's right. No, he's not.
Just a
He's
question.
Now here's the crazy thing, right? About that. So the way I found out about this years later. One of my coworkers, and she might watch this, so I don't know. Anyway, they were at a house. She'd invited them to a party at her house, and she was like, "Hey, do you guys want to drink?" Her and her husband. She was like, "No, we don't drink anymore, but they do coke."
Oh wow.
Hump, you want to jump in next?
Sure.
right.
So coming out of college, like you, Paul, I did an internship after sophomore year. Worked for Alcoa. Great internship. And in between coming back to A&T for my junior year, I got picked up for this Navy program, actually at the end of my first semester junior year. Cool program. Reference back to the conversation where accounting wasn't accounting as I knew it in high school. It was bookkeeping. And realizing that the CPA path wasn't for me. This program came along. I was getting paid as an E3 and eventually as an E5 before I graduated. No weekend warrior, no 2 weeks out of the summer. Just go report in my recruiter's office once a semester. Let them know I was alive and shape. Write down some numbers about some physical readiness on the test and keep it pushing. And kept some money in my pocket my last 2 years of school. So I already knew.
Hold on. Some money?
I kept some money in my pocket.
You came up.
Dude, when you ain't got but so many expenses and you getting a check every, first of the month was lovely. I mean, it was good.
One day, look, this is how I knew Hump was coming up. Hump's very modest. So I was like, hey, we're going so-and-so, we're going somewhere. Hump rides up in his new Acura, red Acura with rims. And I'm like, where does that come from? I'm struggling just to get Taco Bell. And he balled out.
And my dad had to co-sign for it, man. My dad co-signed. Person having problems.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. So, so again, it took a lot of pressure off of the last couple of years of school and allow for me to, enjoy my college experience. Now, that being said, it also allowed for me to get a lot of perspectives. And I think that those perspectives gave me and gave us all, I think, a lot of good ammunition as we went into the real world. I went in I did officer candidate school up here in Newport, Rhode Island for 16 weeks. I became an officer in the Navy. Went in and did this basic qualification course for supply corps officers in the Navy, which is the logistics branch of the Navy. And then was off on a ship for a 2 and 2.5 year tour. First real dive into international. I was fortunate enough to be on a ship that was a part of a D-Day celebration, 40th anniversary at the time. So we hit England, France, Spain, multiple times pulling into Sicily, and to Greece, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. I mean, a lot of really, because all this over a 6-month period. So think about me, country boy from North Carolina, HBCU graduate, got people working for me who could be my father, the age of my father. Very diverse ship. And, you got a little bit of power as an officer, power quote. But the cultures and the diversity and the things that I saw in those first 6 months on the board that ship was just irreplaceable. One thing it stuck in me was I knew whatever I was going to do after I got out the Navy, it had to have an international flavor to it, because I enjoyed seeing other cultures, I enjoyed other foods, and travel. And I wish I had some of the cultural things that I look for now that I did back then. They would have been even more enriching, but did that for 2.5 years, left there. Yeah.
Which country had the most beautiful women?
United States of America, Rich. Come on.
I love it.
What kind of question is that?
I mean, look, it happened in the past.
And I'm sorry, and I left off Colombia, Venezuela, Puerto Rico. So, yeah.
That's why he said he had to have something with flavor. Go ahead.
But again, and that's part of that maturity piece too, right? Again, 23, 24 years old. You're looking for the bars, you're looking for the clubs, you ain't looking for the cultural icons and museums and stuff. So, but you grow, you mature. And my second tour in the Navy, I taught transportation of hazard materials and warehouse operations out of Athens, Georgia. Really cool to be at a small base in a college town, a big college town, and got some SEC football. But I travel a lot. Again, going to some really cool places, UAE. I remember when Dubai was nothing but desert and some golf courses, right? Wow. And you look at it now. And Hawaii, and a lot of time in California, teaching classes out in California, hanging out with Banty a lot in California. But my next rotation in the Navy was back out at sea as a department head. I had met my wife on the infamous boys trips to Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I got to the point where I didn't want to go back out at sea as a department head. 6-month deployments, gone all the time. I've seen it. I had seen it wreck marriages, and you got to know yourself. And I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I started thinking in my mind that I wanted to go back to grad school, and started applying. And fortunate enough to get accepted into a couple. Got some dings too, which is not good for the ego. Trust me. How dare they? How dare they say no? How dare they tell me I can't come to their PhD school? Anyway, University of Michigan. Anyway, I went full time to the Kellogg program. Well, before that, got out the Navy, got married, moved, and started business school all within like a month. Craziest time of my life. But full time at Kellogg, at Northwestern University. Enjoyed every minute of it. Work hard, play hard mentality. That was 27 years ago. Feeling kind of old, but came in between my first and second year, did an internship with IBM here in Research Triangle Park, and got on a supply chain assessment team. Now, that set me on a path of end-to-end supply chain, because we would look at everything in our supply chains and take opportunity assessments, drive change, transformational type of stuff. And so that was the basis for my career. And I went back, finished my second year, was all set to go work for Delta as a financial analyst, and got a call back from my boss's boss at IBM and said, "Hey, I really want you to come back. Oh, by the way, I got a project in Hungary that I'm going to send you over to if you accept." And so I'm back at IBM for a week, and then I'm on a plane over to Budapest. And so Budapest, Vienna, Frankfurt, Prague, all of them that summer. I mean, hit all of them. And that's my first time actually being in Eastern Europe. And so again, building cultural perspectives, understanding the mindset of people around the world. I'll give you guys one quick story that really resonates with me to this day. One of the managers for the facility I was working with in Hungary, outside of Hungary, actually a place called Czechoslovakia, manager, sharpest individual I thought in the facility. And I had a conversation with her. I said, hey, I said, you're really sharp. You manager level, what's your next move? She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, director, you want to run the facility? She goes, look, Anthony, this is the best job me or anyone in my family has ever had. I'm very happy to come here at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm very happy to take my hour lunch with my friends. I'm very happy to go home with my family. And I am very happy to stay in this position until I stop working. I can't work anymore. And that was the first reality check I ever had around being comfortable in what you did in your life and what you do in life. And more importantly, really valuing your work-life balance. So that was a check for me. And it really allowed for me to, as I address other folks that I work with, is you got to figure out what they're working for, what's important to them, what's in it for them. You can't always assume that your goals are what their goals are. Understanding that, along with the experience I got in the Navy, really set the foundation for how I've been able to lead throughout my career. So IBM was great. Wasn't moving fast enough. Under a lot of mid-level managers who were kind of hanging out, waiting for retirement. I wasn't progressing. So I left there and took a position with a company, a consumer packaging company out of Richmond, Virginia. And, great role. Again, global role. I had teams in Asia, South America, Europe, India, and really, again, continue to grow that cultural and world perspective. And great time there. Company got acquired, had some duplication of the role, and I'm pivoted to a healthcare distribution company out of Richmond. Kind of brought in as a pro athlete. Had a good coffee with the CFO of the company, and he said, I don't know what you're going to do for me, the company, but I'm going to bring you in. So they got me in. I helped start some parts of the businesses that they had struggled with, and also picked up some optimization of the network, and some of the strategic accounts got me into some more customer facing roles where I hadn't done before. So as the time has progressed, I'm continuing to build on the foundation and getting different perspectives. That turned into risk taking, as Richard talked about. I took a risk and got an offer from a startup out in the Bay Area. And trust me when I tell you, after you've been in the workplace for 15, 20 years, you kind of take a lot of things for granted when you go to a place and they are literally struggling with the basic blocking and tackling around supply chain. And so dove right in. I was with the company probably 5 months before the pandemic hit. It felt like I'd been there for 3 years because we got so much done in such a short period of time. Pandemic hit, had to do some more pivoting. Wasn't moving out. Need to mention, we had sold a house, mind you, 3 kids at the time, 3 boys who were chomping at the bit to figure out what we're going to do next. Had sold our house in Richmond, was on our way to move to California, had broken the news to them, all that. And then the pandemic hits, and I'm not moving to California to work out of a house and not understand what's happening next. So we spent a month in Norfolk, Virginia, made a decision to come back to North Carolina. From that, I picked up some clients. I hung a shingle and started an advisory group and worked with some clients out in the Bay Area for some contacts that I made out there. And it's been a series of pivots since the pandemic, some for the good, some for the not as successful. Did a stint with Thermo Fisher for a couple of years where I helped run their end-to-end supply chain for one of the small parts of their business. And today I'm doing some consulting. Hasn't been great, hasn't been bad as I've heard of others, but it's been rewarding because, Paul, to your point, small businesses of America don't know what they don't know. And that's been the client base for the most part thus far, inclusive of working with a small consulting firm out of Greensboro. That was interesting. I'll leave it at that. But the small and medium businesses of America are in desperate need of help. And, when we start talking about how things are changing globally, they are the ones who are going to be impacted the most. And understanding some of the places I've been, understanding how some of the governments operate, understanding how it's going to impact the way they do business has been something that has helped me a little bit, and hopefully it's helped some of those companies a lot. And that gives perspective for me. So when we start talking about things around the government, we start talking about things that are happening internationally, when we start talking about businesses and how they're affected, I do have some firsthand knowledge on that. On the sports tip, played a little bit of baseball out of high school, played 1 year A&T, and walked on and realized that when they went to fall and spring baseball and I wasn't on scholarship, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze anymore. So focused on the academics and, had continued to stay connected via my sons. Twins played football, one of them played football, one of them played basketball and football. And my youngest plays baseball, which was my sport. And, I really poured to him and to others, and just about everybody on this stream probably knows some of the same people, have met and hung out and had great in-depth conversations with a lot of pro athletes, GMs who are running teams. Don't think I've met any owners yet outside of that bald-headed guy that was in Charlotte for a while. But, getting the perspective of how they do business day to day, how they carry themselves as professionals, definitely lends some understanding of what it takes to get there. To Rich's point, to Paul's point, there's a lot of sacrifice that has to take place in order for them to get on television for us to watch them and pay big money to go to their games, right? I once saw a triangle that said, friends, school, or sports, pick two, right? And you can't have all three. And it's amazing to have some conversations with some folks who have lost some friends or said, you know what, screw school. This is just a conduit till I can get to where I can make this money. But majority of them poured everything that they could into the sports. And you do recognize the difference between somebody who's good and are just out there doing it and the ones who are driven and who have the ability to take it to the next level. And as we look at, we're breaking down games, we're breaking down schematics, and I will say the older you get, the more you start to see, the more you start to pay attention, the more you start to recognize the evolution of all the sports and how that really plays into the success of teams. So when we're talking about that, we will get passionate because we have a lot of perspective. So that's it in a nutshell. Hope that answers where we are. I didn't go into the cool story of how I met my wife twice. But the first time was in Hampton, Virginia, still in the Navy. And as I was being the big brother to some of my younger frat brothers on the yard, I got invited to a senior skate party. The only sober one in the bunch, which is a rare moment. But I saved a couple of frat brothers that night from some bad comments. But in the meantime, I didn't officially meet my wife until on the boys' trip to Chicago and recognized her in the line the first Friday. And, we've been together for 27 years since. 27? All right. Yeah, 27. Yeah, it'll be 27 this year. So
get it right.
Man, look, hey, at least I ain't say 30 or 20. Yeah.
Hey, she's not gonna care. Get it right.
It feels like 30.
26, it'll be 27 this year. I'm doing good.
They had such a ring
like
to it. 8898. Remember that?
8898. That's it, right? Yeah. How can I forget?
Is that right? Did I get that right?
That's right. Okay. 8898. That's right. But yeah, so I mean, three sons out of it. Twins are A&T. I try to pour as much into them as I could, and I think some of it's paying off. And my youngest fella's in the 8th grade, and he'll be starting as a freshman. He'll be a freshman next year in high school. So life continues, life keeps lifing, and keep trying to do what we can to make sure we are the shining example for these kids.
Amen.
Excellent.
Good stuff. What high school is
Great.
it going to be?
Panther Creek.
Oh, okay.
Panther Creek.
Yep.
Who just happened to have the only HBCU draft pick this year, graduated from Panther Creek, went to Alabama
Oh, wow.
A&M.
Good.
He will be protecting Lamar Jackson's backside, hopefully in a couple seasons. Maybe not next season, but in a couple seasons.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good deal. Yeah, because Huff is definitely a renaissance man. Experience.
That's a problem
all over
too,
the
Pete. I would
world.
say it's a problem, dude. It is an absolute problem. I find way too many things that I'm interested in. And
Hey,
it
nothing wrong
becomes
with
a
that.
passion.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's golf, it's
Hey.
motorcycles, it's
True.
bourbon.
Yep.
I mean,
True. Hey,
and that's just
true.
I find something I like, I dive in.
Fit body.
True renaissance
Well, go
man.
ahead.
Man. True renaissance man.
What you say?
That's a fit body.
Working out. Yeah. I mean, it's, but again, and when we talk about things here, and to your point, P, there's a lot of things I don't know a lot about, but there's a lot of things I do, and I'm either one off or two off on getting a little bit more information and then being able to put it in perspective, and that's why I think there's a little bit of credibility in some of the things we talk about here.
Right. Excellent. So, Quake, you want to jump in next?
And
Sure.
then let me. Oh, yeah.
So I think my college experience was, it's twofold, right? So there's the first half, which, I met you guys and Hump and Ken and everybody, and then you guys graduated, and then I actually stepped away. I got married, had a kid, got divorced, and then I re-enrolled and switched majors and went to the School of Business. And I can relate to some of what Rich was saying. When I was there in the first stint, I don't think I took full advantage of like the career service opportunities and, preparing for interviews and internships and things of that nature. But I did when I went back. And it has been the most beneficial things ever. Because post-graduation and starting to work in the healthcare arena, you learn that, those transferable skills are going to be good wherever you go. And and using that, I've, like most of you, I've worked for private sectors, I've worked for public sectors. I currently work for Cone Health, and it's huge, right? But we've seen the changes, all the healthcare changes, and how we're going to be affected from payers. To what extent at this point, we have no idea. But I'm going to show up every day and go to work every day and produce every day. And whatever happens. I'm not dwelling on it. I've been around and worked long enough to know that, there are ups and downs and everything, there ebbs and flows, right? And you just have to prepare yourself for whatever it is, come what may. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to make sure that my family's okay. I have ventured back to graduate school and secured a degree in master's in health care administration. So that's another feather in the cap, so to speak, to do something from a diverse background, whether it's insurance, whether it's federal government, hospital administration, what have you. It just brightens the horizon that you get options. And I'm grateful for those options. I think college probably grounded me. I could have been a loose cannon for a long time, but having a circle and a circle of achievers at that, right, kind of keeps you focused. I think that accountability piece, you don't want to not be sharp when everybody else is sharp. You don't want to not grow your skill set and have growth and opportunities when it's all around you. So I am grateful for that. And I think the brotherhood, right? I think we've mentioned it a million times, but Rich, we have a group that we talk every single day, like every single day. And it keeps you plugged in. You know, there are some days where you can participate based on what your schedule can give you, and some days you can't. But I found it to be most enriching because this part of life is difficult, right? We have career challenges, we have family challenges, we have parents that are aging. You know, we're looking at retirement. You know, we have all these irons in the fire, but yet and still, we still have to navigate day to day to divide your time to what's most important at that time. So I'm learning to be a better steward of that. With my kids, I have 3 sons. Derek's from the first marriage, and then Matthew and Miles from the second. Derek's grown. He's doing his thing. I am a consultant, so to speak, these days. He reaches out when he needs me. I give him my input. He takes it, he uses it, but he's got his little online clothing store going. We don't know about what he's going to do with school, but I'm not pushing him. I want him to figure out what works for him. The younger 2, Miles is a junior. Matthew's a freshman in high school. They're both athletes. Miles is a swimmer. Matthew, I think he's just playing basketball these days. At least that's what he said he's doing. So right now we're running on the AAU circuit. And Rich, I can pull from you and Hump and Paul with regards to figuring out your focus with that. You know, are you playing for fun? Are you playing for something post high school? I will tell you that the efforts look like he's playing for fun. So we have to, you know, narrow that down and let him create the narrative of what he wants to be and how he wants to do it.
It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper than if you're just playing for fun. In the sense that you don't got to get no trainers. You ain't even got to play AAU. You can just play at the Y. That's what it is.
Well, we've done that road, the trainers, the AAU. I cuss every time I think about the money and time that's gone into it. But I was speaking to someone earlier today, and they made a very valid point. And that point was, what's important? Is it cutting it out? Because I think these kids nowadays, they do the overlap, right? It's partly, yeah, I'm interested. Partly, yeah, I like the social aspect. Partly, yes, I like you can post on YouTube and you can follow these things and get hits and likes and Instagrams and all this. I could care less about any of that, but this is what they know. This is what's important to them. So I don't take that lightly, but I will cherish the time and efforts that we travel, that we create additional memories, that we create, you know, talks in the car, bonding with the family on those trips, and use that for time to make sure that we are where we need to be, right? More so than looking at, you know, some of these kids you look at, they're playing to eat. They're playing to survive. They're playing to get the next level to be a means of financing and a breakthrough for everybody, right? That's not our focus. You know, we're doing this post high school is college, and get you what you need for your foundation for your career. So that's the perspective I'm taking. My wife will be my wife of 23 years this year. We met in '99 at a wedding. We were married 3 years later. Like you, Paul, when I got married, I had a job, I had a home, but things were tight. It wasn't where we are now. But we've managed to grow and build the family and the marital bond to what it is today. I'm grateful. She's got the patience of Job to be with me. You know, I could be a bit much at times, but she puts up with it. Like Hump, I have some of the same interests. I like cars. I like cigars. I like golf. I like motorcycles, and she supports everything. Yeah, you may have to work a few trips and then, some spa treatments or something, but she manages to hang in there with me. I do think college is one of the best times of my life. You get to figure out who you are. I think when you're at home with your parents, you become who they want you to be. But when you're on your own, you develop the skill set to really figure out who you are, how you contribute, and what you bring to whatever relationship it is, whether it's work, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's relationships. You grow that muscle, and you slowly walk into the future with regards to what's necessary for you to sustain the lifestyle that you're actually looking for. So I'm grateful for that. So that's who I am, and that's what I do.
Cool, excellent,
Awesome.
Thanks for that great insight, Quake, into your life. Ty, Kid, you guys want to flip a coin?
You're on mute, Ty. You're on
My
mute.
bad. Hold on.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going now because Ken got way too much going on. It's the fourth quarter of the Detroit Pistons game. They getting whipped. So let me go in and get through this. Because Ken gonna need the rest of the. Yeah, he might be to 12 o'clock midnight. So like I said in the previous episode, my mother was the catalyst behind me going to an HBCU. I was a college co-op for General Motors in high school. A lot of the folks in accounting and business were from A&T. That's how I got introduced to it. That was the year they almost beat Syracuse. That was '88. And everybody wondered, well, what was A&T? We had got accepted. Me and my best friend were going, Kelvin Atwater. And so once they almost won that game, it was like, because again, I went to a predominantly white high school, so that was a big deal. But yeah, HBC was the best choice. She knew already, just based on how we came up, that we needed to get a different perspective, a different look. She went to Mississippi Valley State. I have a twin sister. She went to Michigan State her first year. And then I guess my mom realized, okay, you're away from home anyway. It doesn't matter. You're gone. So she transferred to Hampton her second year. But so A&T, I'm not like, I have awesome wansome or twosome, but not like the awesome foursome that we have on this call. So my biggest relationships were made at A&T. I honestly, everything around my life, my kids, godfathers, godmothers, it's amazing what it's done. And just for your confidence, one thing about A&T, you could not have told me that I wasn't going to go to A&T and have about 3 masters in about 3 years. That was just the black school stereotype. But to get there and see leadership positions who were serious and focused, and really let you know how unfocused you were, what you didn't know. Similar to what we said about sports, this was a way out for a lot of folks. I'm down there wondering, folks in line for financial aid for a couple $1,000s. I'm like, look, I'm out of state. Like, shoot, you better get out the way. But do you realize how first generation folks and honestly, but the struggle. I mean, one thing I've learned to appreciate is this is the way out for a lot of folks.
And hold on one second. Let's change up. Can you hear me now?
That's much better.
There you go. Yeah. So I figured, but the most eye-opening thing was going and seeing, first generation folks who were like, "This is my way out," and to see again them in student government positions, and just they knew what they wanted. as opposed to going down and just. I mean, it wasn't a choice of if I was going; it was where I was going. So I played baseball for A&T. My story is similar to Hump's. The first year, the coach that recruited me got let go. I didn't even take the. I took the ACT. I forget which one do you have to have for North Carolina A&T? SAT or
That's
It
ACT?
could be, it could be, it could be either or, right?
Well, no, for out of state. Anyway, I didn't take the one for out of state, and so the coach told me, "Don't worry about it." I just got a letter
Uh,
3 days later that I was in.
he
Needless to
told me
say,
that.
went through the first season, got on the bus, getting ready to go to the MEAC playoffs in Florida.
Tallahassee.
We're on the bus. They get on the bus, and all of a sudden, he's going down the list. Tyron Bond and a couple other brothers. You are ineligible to make the trip because you did. Oh, yeah, because the coach was fired, so he never made it day one. Coach Lane came in that year. That was his first year. So we had to get off the bus, but I'll never forget on the way off the bus, a couple of the players said, "Man, you'll be okay." And I was hurt, but it happened to be Aggie Fest weekend. And Lord, when I tell you the players, they kept saying, "Look, we wish we could be you."
I did
And
not
I'm
start.
telling you, that was
They were
my
like,
first
"You
Aggie
will
Fest,
be okay."
and they said it, but I didn't know until around noon that afternoon when that cancer started filling up. When I say it, look, that's a life changer right there. So, so anyway, I
Ty,
graduated from
Ty, Ty,
marketing. Long
Ty,
story short,
before you go on, I
uh,
heard through the grapevine the Jersey story for the first time about 2 weeks ago,
for the first time.
where you had to actually give up your
Oh yeah,
jersey.
I said for the you must have had it better than us. Oh yeah, that's how bad it was. Cause again, I went to a white high school, so we had all the bells and whistles. We had our own cages. And you get the A&T, and we got to get coins to go up to the All American Center to put coins to put a batting cage. we go to the games. We only got a certain amount of uniforms. So what Hump is talking about, and it's very true, Hump. So to get in the game, because we had our own little track sweatsuits, but there was only a certain amount of game jerseys. So to get in the game, they would call it between innings. You had to go to the bus and wear and take off your jersey and wear because they didn't have enough. So in order to get in the game, we had to change. That's how crazy it was. Yeah, and I called my dad. He was like, "What is going on down there?" But again, needless to say, a couple years later, we won the MEAC championship. Things changed, but
Right.
but
Mhm.
without a doubt, I mean, HBCU was the best decision ever made. We just came back from Miami celebrating our 35th line anniversary, where we had
Mhm.
where we had lines represented from 2-3 years before us to after us. So the brotherhood is strong and just the relationships. But I graduated with a marketing degree. My first job was with Dudley Products. Um, I moved up here with about 4 or 5 other Aggies. And we developed the Detroit area. I had planned to stay home and,
Mhm.
Saginaw and make some money before I got a place. But my father told me, because I was used to being in North Carolina, but I was back home and coming in when I wanted to come in. So needless to say, uh, all I
He let
heard
you know
was,
what was up.
he was like, "Look, you back at home. Those are house rules. And now we have college kids. I get it now because, like he said, when you're away from home, we don't worry about when you're coming in. But when you're at home, your mom not going to sleep
Hmm.
until she know you safe and back in the house.
That's right.
And so either you're gonna respect the house or get out the house. So needless to say, my second check, I was moving back to Detroit. So I had a good run with Dudley. Did well there. Learned a lot about sales, and I'm a people person. I know I seem shy, but I am a people person, so that's kind of
Okay.
my thing. But so it was a great experience. I learned just anyway. I'm not gonna get into that, but I learned a lot working for Dudley. Um, then from Dudley, I got in. I stayed in sales. I got a pharmaceutical job. No, I got into computer sales down in Delaware. Again, we'll skip through that one too. So I had a couple years of Penny Bowls, then I had to come back home. So I moved back here. Started working for. That's when I got into pharmaceutical sales. I did really well in pharmaceutical sales for a while. Um,
You were a
then
street pharmacist? No, just like that.
I was legal pharmaceutical sales. But you're right. You're right. I got to clarify these days. But I learned again. I love people getting out. I couldn't be inside four walls if you paid me to. That's just not my thing. And so I did that for a while. I worked for Pfizer through a merger, but Pfizer had never had a layoff in their whole history at that time. That was in '97, I think '98. But I tell you what, when they had a layoff, they had one. When they did it, they did it.
Oh.
So hey, I was the number 2 sales rep. We sit here, they said, well, stay at
Well,
home.
Houston's just tied the game. Sorry.
Look, did they? Hold on a second. Well, anyway, sorry, don't do that. Don't do that, Ken.
Sorry,
So,
Ty.
Yeah, so anyway,
This is the second round, ain't it? This is the second round.
First round.
First one.
Ooh.
First round?
They just
This
tied
the
the game.
first round?
Yeah.
Oh God!
Yeah,
This is
first
the
real
first
round.
round. Man. We don't care.
Yeah, but his
Yeah.
team
Sorry
is
to
in it.
interrupt you, Ty, but I thought
We don't
They on
care
the
about
road,
that
Paul.
shit.
They on the
crazy.
road.
Oh shoot!
We don't care about that shit.
it scored 76
I
points.
stopped looking, Ken. I appreciate that, Ken. I stopped looking.
Yeah. So
So
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. But
oh no, don't be all.
I messed it
I'm
up.
behind you. We just tied it up 103.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry. You got
Yeah,
to
put it
work
on
on
pause.
that.
Y'all ain't sorry. Y'all ain't sorry.
So anyway, so I worked for Pfizer, but when they had a layoff, they had a layoff, and that's when I got introduced to my neighbor, who knew some entrepreneur headhunters, and so they kind of did companies to kind of match you. I wanted to got in entrepreneurship, and I did a restoration company called Puro Clean, where we worked on hot fire, water, mold remediation. And it was cool. Biggest mistake, I should have went with a Serve Pro or something like that. That was more um,
Established.
established. Well, it was established down in Florida. The company is based out of Florida, but they did nothing here. So everything here I had to do myself. So I was chasing my tail. So I mean, I had a lot of success. But the problem was I was good at getting business. But the problem was I had to be the project manager, see it through. So it's almost like you're starting over and starting over. And so, to what Rich said, you don't know until you know you jump into something. So I don't have any regrets, besides the fact that, at that time, when I got laid off from Pfizer, I was the number 2 rep. And they've been telling me the whole time, you were rep of the year 2-3 years in a row. You need to get into management. And my attitude was, hey, I'm responsible for me. I'm making what I need to make. So, and so I say that to say, just for our kids, for us, I should have taken the manager opportunity, even if for a little while, just to
Right.
kind of check that box. And to what Hunt was saying, you get comfortable in your own space, and so, I should have taken that and kind of, parlayed that into something else just to do it. And I got out of it instead of, when that layoff came, I easily probably could have gotten to another company based on what I was doing, but I went the entrepreneur route. So, you can't kick yourself for things that you do. That's what life is about,
That's right.
But sometimes I look back and say, I got out like in my prime. You know what I mean? To try something. But again, it was a good run. Did it for about 7 years, so had some success, made money, but not what I was making before. But I learned a lot. Um, so after I sold the franchise, I got back into pharmaceutical sales, and for a few years, then got let go from there as well. But had a great run. But in the meantime, baseball is my passion. We opened up a baseball facility, and we still have it now. My neighbor, he's an alpha from Grambling, and so we're a baseball softball family. So I have a baseball place called the Lab, where we specialize in baseball and softball training. Have about 7 trainers that train out of there.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, so it's again, it's been a good run, good way to make some extra, but it's a passion thing as well. But
Right.
we're a baseball family, and so we've all gone through there. Um, my wife and I, we have a distribution company. And my sister also got into it, and so we have that going as well. And my wife works full time with her other job as well. So I like to say I work for her, But and so those are the things we have going now. Um, I met her through my my sayings. My One of my closest frat brothers married her best friend, and so we met through that connection. And we've been together. It'll be 27 years for us again as well this year.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so three kids, 2 boys and my favorite. I mean, 2 boys and my daughter. So, so my 2 boys are at
Oh,
they attend that school down in Florida, the HBCU, Florida A&M. That's it, Florida A&M. They're junior and sophomore, and I guess if exams go right, they'll be senior and junior year
wow.
by the end of the week. In fact, my wife is down there right now with them, getting everything secured. Because my oldest, and I need to talk to you, Hump. He'll be in Memphis this summer working for in supply chain with International Paper.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, so
Good
he's
job.
gonna.
Love it.
He's nervous. It's a 6-month, 7-month co-op, which is, he's nervous about missing, a semester, but.
He get
Um,
that first check, he'll be all right.
Well,
I know, right?
between that and I've heard that the experience is more important than school right now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
he'll be okay.
Absolutely.
So he'll be in
He'll be
Memphis
fine.
this summer. So that's a good thing. I only have one of the boys at home, so he'll be interning with Blue Cross Blue Shield. He's also
Good
he
stuff.
he's in facilities management, so he'll be. But yeah, pray for me having him in the house, because that's that dude. That's that one. Yeah, so yeah. Anyway, but both of them just finished pledging, so I have two other captains in the house with me. So I'm praying for you, Hump. And then I have a daughter who's a junior in high school. Um, she's she wants to be an Aggie, so I may get one. And if I get one,
Okay.
that's the one I want. But like you were saying, Rich, she has all the tools if she wants to play. She's a softball player, and it's she's a natural. But
Nice.
but you have to, a lot of distractions come in as you get older. So I've had and it's a different conversation with a boy than it is with a girl. How you have to come at them, but the conversation still has to be real. She's a 3A student, so she's fine academically. But I told her, if you want to play, you got hungry kids out here who want to play.
That's
Hmm.
right.
And so, it's there's no days off. Whether
Nope.
it's weight training, whether it's running, whether it's hitting, you have to be doing something every day related to your sport. I
Yep.
mean, these days it's simple as sitting down and your ass watching the game for once. That's all we did. You can't
Right.
get these kids to watch the sport they play.
Right.
You
Film.
know,
That's the
we
film.
used to watch and emulate our favorite player, and I mean, it's so much
I,
you can see just from watching the game.
yeah. I thought I was the
So,
only one that was like
oh
that.
no, that's
No,
my biggest. Hey,
no.
that's why I was late getting on this phone call, because Florida's playing Oklahoma softball, one of the top 2 teams. I'm like, "Now you got 2 games tomorrow, 2 games on Saturday." I said, look, you need to watch some of this. You doing well. I mean, she's having a good season, but watch the game. Give me a couple innings. I don't need a whole game, but watch an inning or two. And I think if these kids learn to watch the sport they play, they can learn so much. Because when she's watching it, she's calling out, she did this, she did this. It's so many things you can see that you can use. And so just funny you guys said that. So but
And
the game
that's-
is getting
that's-
tight. Go ahead.
That's a great point that I've never really thought about. You're the only one on the podcast with a daughter, if I'm not mistaken, right? Who else has a daughter?
Or Ken has a daughter.
That's right. Ken does have a daughter. That's right. Sure. I'm thinking all the boys because when you mentioned Kappa, I was like, okay.
Hey, kid, tell them, hey, sometimes you had to let them get on top.
Is that how that happens?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
See, Rich asked the question. Really?
Is that really how that happens?
Oh my god. Oh, man.
But hey, this game is getting. I'm gonna wrap up right there.
They all suck.
Great info, Ty. Very background for sure. You always, like I mentioned, you always provide clarity in any situation, no matter what. And I'm sure your very background, ties into that. But Ken, why don't you go ahead and jump?
And the Pistons won the challenge, Ty. So, it's an important game, Ken. So,
Yes.
all right.
That third quarter,
it's
quarter
the first
was
round.
the longest quarter I have ever seen in my life. So go ahead.
It's the first round.
Well, the good thing about that is that Hump got us through the third quarter.
Hey, I play my part. I play my position.
Oh man!
I play my
Oh,
position.
wow.
I was looking out for you, man. I know you were watching the game. I got you.
So let us let Ken go so he can handle the fourth quarter and post game, and maybe first take tomorrow.
Hey, we cover. We go to overtime.
It may be first take in the morning.
No. I'm ready now, Ty. I'm ready now. So, because
This will be the quickest one of the night, probably.
because you all gave me a framework for how to talk. Because I'm a consultant, and that's what geeky consultants do, right? So, if I had to talk about the headlines of my life after college, I probably put it in kind of 4 parts. It's been a journey of learning, which I'll talk a lot about. It's been a grind, and often in prime time, which is kind of affording me some just great opportunities. 3 is still always, pushing for excellence, right? You guys get texts from me all the time that is, let's keep pushing. That's kind of my mantra on a lot of things. And so, I like to think we're all together here because this is an excellent group, and I'm always thirsty for that. And then the last one is building a brand and legacy that matters, right? And so I kind of think about those 4 things. So first, I have been, like I talked about my childhood and how it was choppy and disjointed and kind of, it ended up fine. But since then, I think my life of learning has been almost as linear as anyone's could ever be, right? I have, coming out of A&T, I had that accounting degree, right? And at the time, as Hump can attest, we were in the credit accounting program, and there were just so many opportunities for us, and it literally sparked so much for me, right? So much that today I give credit when I see the guy who kind of recruited me for my second intern, but what became my job, which was with GE, right? And, Derek Gregory, you know Derek Gregory? Derek Gregory, we see him all the time at A&T.
Derek
right?
Gregory.
He's
He's recruiting GE out of Cleveland, talking about Cleveland was the best location in the nation. It's like, get out
Exactly.
of here.
And he came to me and he said, "Hey, there's something about you. I'm gonna give you a shot this summer." And that was the summer between my junior and senior year. And so I went from A&T to that GE program, which was regarded at the time as like the best training ground in business in the world at that time, right? And so I basically went right into a work by day and a high-end MBA like program at night, right? Where I was in a class across the company. There were like 40 of us, but in the energy business, there were like 12 of us, right? And the program was one that was relentless, that it told you it was forced ranking. We knew who was 1 and who was 12, right? And it pushed us big time. And with the whole caveat is the higher you did in performing in the day job and then in the classroom at night, you got your pick of kind of jobs to come, right? And so, you know, I went into full grind mode, right? But it was a tremendous. It taught me a ton of shit early, because I wasn't just an accountant. I was learning finance. I was learning strategy. I think 3 months into it, I was part of a team that was laying people off at the manufacturing plant, which was a big eye opener, because I was like, wow, this is what happens in the room. But boy, this is also crazy that they're actually laying people off, and it's cavalier to these people, right? And that both accelerated my kind of interest in learning, but also immediately started souring me on corporations, right? And this is like in my first assignment. But I had an advantage. And Pete, you talked a lot about being around people who and one day you said, well, I'm just as smart as these people. The people in my class came from the Ivy League schools and top schools. And it took me about 6 months, coming out, I was ranked number 1 or 2 in the group, right? For the first, and then reputation procedures, you keep rolling. And I learned that I could do any and everything they could just as well. So A&T had prepared me in a way that was great, right? That program then set me up, that Hump can attest, because after I did that program, writing my application to Kellogg, I kind of knew I would get in. In fact, I went into the evening program because it was just like my day program. I got to keep working. Go to class instead of once a week. I had to go to class twice a week at Kellogg. But the beauty part of it is, and this is one of the milestones that probably was as big as anything. As I was getting ready to do that program, I was coming out. I was graduating into the GE program, and I was being asked to go to Philadelphia. Well, I wanted to go to Chicago. Right? I wanted to go to Philly, and they wanted to send me to Chicago. And I was like, well, if I go to Chicago, will you guys help me get into B school? Right? And they're like, if you get in, it's cool. Well, we got you. And so,
real quick, Ken, for the record, let it be known that Ken said he wanted to go to Philly.
Oh, yeah.
I know. God takes care of babies and fools, right?
He may not ever want to repeat that again, huh?
The Lord takes care of babies and fools. How much of a fool I've been. Really? Come on, man. That was the worst. That would have been the worst thing ever. So I go to Chicago, and I get into Kellogg, and I kind of go to GE and say, hey, I got in.
And just for people that may not know, I think Huck mentioned it. University of Chicago is Kellogg Business School, right? Nope. Maybe I don't know shit.
Is the boot school, and it's on the other side of town. Kellogg is the School of Management at Northwestern University.
Northwestern, that's right. Northwestern. I got that. So my part.
Yes,
and that's one of the top business schools in the country, right?
And they'll let you know it too.
In the world, exactly. We're gonna let you know, Ty. In fact, Hub and I class of 2000, and our class, we were the number 1 business school in the world.
That's right. That's right.
So, and that was another, like, at this point, if you guys can imagine, my head's just swelling with all information from A&T to GE, and now this program. Because I got my CFO job at 26. So I was a CFO during the day, going to B school at night twice a week, just feeding that beast more and more. I was blessed because GE actually paid for my MBA, and that was, that just doesn't even happen today, right? That they do those kind of things. I kind of knew that I wanted to do consulting after that. And so I went from there into a boutique consulting firm where I learned strategy and M&A and did that for 5 years. And, Kellogg, I studied strategy, finance, marketing, and I minored in entrepreneurship. And so I had all this knowledge. So by the time now I'm 35, I just feel like I've learned a ton, right? And I kind of say that's good and bad. I'm still a consultant now. I started consulting in that 2000 when we graduated. I can't get off the consulting grind because nothing else satisfies my quest for learning, right? It's just so fast that anything else would probably kind of bore me, right? In fact, at this point that I've kind of in many ways mastered even consulting, that I'm always looking to learn. So like Huff talked about, I think one thing that Huff and I always had in common is our inquisitiveness, right? If we start on something, I usually can't put it down until I learn about it, right? So books back here, and I'm pretty particular about what it is. The books back here, these books are either business books, history books, or books by people who I've known and met. And so I kind of read those kind of things. Podcasts I listen to on a regular. It's always about the same things. It's about well-being. It's about a little bit sometimes about sports. It's about law. It's about government. And so I'm always, it's for me, literally, it's been a life of learning that I just don't know any other way. You know what I mean? I kind of get bored if I'm not. So that's the learning piece. I think the second part of that is it's just been a grind in prime time, right? I've been on big stages, right? Kellogg was one. I went from there to like a boutique strategy M&A firm. So I was doing deals early and in the big rooms early. I went to Deloitte, and that was a big stage. When by the time I was 40 and I made partner, I was put on the board of directors at a company, right? And ran a P&L. So I've had the fortune of being in the room, and it forces me all the time to be on, right? And when you're on, you got to do both. You got to talk, you got to present yourself, but you also got to listen, right? So and so that in itself is part of it. And that those two things combined are just in itself a grind, right? You're always working. You're always working in that type of world. Like some people ask me, I had a guy asked me the other day, did I dye my hair? And I was like, why would I dye my hair this color, right? And he just like, it's pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, it is, but it's also it's a representation of how much I've worked over the years, right? The boys know this because I talk about it all the time. I used to be 30 pounds heavier, right? I was heading down a path that just wasn't great so life of learning and then grinding, right? And that probably was me from 20 to 45, right? And it wasn't a pretty sight. And that's where I think my whole mindset changed around move towards excellence, right? I kind of felt like I'd done a lot of shit and not necessarily focus on the right outcomes of things. And so what's gotten more important that I've tried to do is just do stuff that's more meaningful, be around people who are positive, right? Today at this point in the last, say, 12 years, I've served on 6 boards that are not for profit. I've also, that doesn't include the company boards I've served on. And so doing mission-based work is really cool. It's because I just kind of feel like all this shit in my head should have more purpose than making someone money. You know what I mean? And so we talk about how we get here and why I care, why I get heated about some of these things is I just kind of feel like we've got a finite amount of time. And so we should be, striving for excellence, improving those around us, improving and making the impact that we do. And so I pride myself now in being around more and more people that are doing positive shit, are trying to make things work, and who think about things the right way and try to minimize the things that don't. I am equally concerned about what I eat, right? And then, because they always say you are what you eat. So if you eat better, you physically are better. I kind of feel the same way about my head. If you surround yourself with and put bullshit in your head, you think bullshit thoughts. And so I try to, when I talk about the excellence, I strive for that because I think that makes us all better people. Which then leads me to the last part, which is branding and legacy. I am back to the point of purpose, right? One of the things that I have talked about and heard me talk about this for years now. I used to call it Merit Inc. before it was a concept of basically getting to a point where what you do, who you are, your day job, all those things kind of are part of a thing. It's a brand. It's a thing of service. I end up, starting it in the context of a firm, Merit Advisory Group, when I kind of launched it in 2019. And I think of it as my company, and it's branded, my website, and all those kind of things for what I do as a day job, which is an advisor, a consultant, coaching, with all those kind of things. But when I talk to my family, we talk about it as a means for us to advance kind of our broader selves, right? It's our well-being. It's our model for service. It's a means to an end because purpose is what we're about, right? That we don't. I from all the grind and all the shit I've seen working for companies, having I kind of feel like I probably have had 200 clients in 25 years, right? I've worked with 500-600 people, smart people all around and stuff, and those things don't. So it can't be about that stuff anymore. It's got to be about like what purpose and impact and legacy you leave. And so Merit Advisory it's our well-being, it's our service, it's our means to an end. The entrepreneurship that we learned very late. Rich, I loved your point. I wish I knew more about it 20 years ago, right? As I told you, one of the boards I sit on is the board at Business College at A&T, and I'm a very critical because I feel like we didn't learn enough about entrepreneurship when we came through there. So the next generation of kids should know that. I try to teach my kids that, and they're all about it, and I love that about them. Allison and I have been married for 30 years now, and she loves the concept of Merit Advisory, what we do. Kenya's 25. She has her day job. She was an A&T cheerleader, did all those. She's the athlete of the family. And when we don't think about that as just a hobby, we think about that as a means for her to do more and more of the stuff she loves to do. KJ, some of the guys know him. He is, ever since he got to A&T, he's had a little side business. We have visions of him joining me in the world. He's also a photographer. So we look at Merit Advisory as a family brand and legacy that is what we're about, not what we do during the day. You know what I mean? All that stuff bleeds in together, and that then allows me, bringing it full circle to kind of why I care about politics, why I care about these kind of things is, if you're going to make an impact, you probably ought to know what's going on and have a voice in it. So,
excellent. That's
dude, that is
great information.
Man, that is so exciting. The stuff that you laid out.
Hey, Rich, he's not done yet.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm telling you, man, that is so impressive. My little brother went to Kellogg many years after y'all. He was a West Point grad and then went to Kellogg, and he's doing well for himself. He's out in Seattle.
And I think one thing that I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but I think a lot of times early in my career, I took a lot of stuff for granted. Like when you're in those rooms and you're soaking up stuff where you're supposed to be soaking it up, and you're providing input where you're supposed to be providing input, you kind of take it for granted because you now in your mind you think that's the way it's supposed to be, right? And so when you get to the point where you are I'm laughing at Ty's reaction right now because I know what he's doing.
We're gonna remove Ty.
Oh, when you get to the point where you are, you have taken it because it becomes your norm.
Yeah.
Your patience becomes short for those who don't put that effort in. And I think it applies across the board. When you look at kids who are really good at sports when they're younger, right? And you know that they have the talent, but they're not putting in the effort. Or when you have that person who is putting in the effort, it's funny how all this stuff plays out through life. You know?
I'm a big one of the pods I listen to from time to time is Masterclass, right? And like, they say you master something after you've done it for 10,000 hours, right? Which is essentially 5 years. This is my 25th year as a consultant. So like I've literally, I know how it sounds, but I've forgotten more shit than most people know, right?
Yeah, no, it's real. It's real, and it's an asset to be able to put yourself in a reality check from time to time and make sure that you're speaking on a level where people can grasp what you're putting down. Again, I don't think I ever encountered until I started working with the companies out in the West Coast, and you start talking some basic blocking and tackling around supply chain. They're looking at you like you have three eyes, right? And you're like, shit, okay, let me break this down. And then it challenges you to make sure that you are at a level that you can talk through it. And then sometimes it's rewarding because it makes you go back and get grounded in the fundamentals of some things sometimes. So I struggle. One of the things I struggle with to this day is, you had the question, did you peak too early, right? Have you tapped out to the point where, to your point, you'll get bored if you're doing anything else?
Yeah. And my what excites me now, I mean, like M&A work is it gets old, right? Because and Rich, the stuff you were talking about, like I was done with that stuff 15 years ago, right? Because the bad part about it is when I did the M&A stuff, and then when I was with Deloitte, it was financial services and financial markets were my industry. So I was surrounded by kind of Wall Street like those types all the time, and those guys are the biggest assholes you meet.
Yes, they are.
They get off on how big a jerk they can be, right? So the M&A deals I'm doing now, right? So I kicked off one this past week. It's for a not-for-profit, right? A way of example, if with all the stuff that's happening with budgets pooled and all that kind of thing that we've been talking about, where you have a lot of not-for-profits losing their funding, right? Or money's drying up and things like that. So if you got a not-for-profit and you don't get funding, but you want to continue the mission, you have a couple of options. You can kind of shut your doors. You can, cut all your admin costs and do the best you can, or you can, be consumed by someone else. And so the deals I'm working on now are for catch the ball. That's the second time this happened. It's 2 straight games, right? That happened last night.
Catch the ball.
And so this is for a company that creates jobs and programs for people with disabilities, right? So folks, if you think about it, like one of the biggest hidden parts of our workforce is people with disabilities. Because once a company learned that you're kind of on the spectrum, or you have a physical limitation, or you suffer from depression from time to time, many of them won't hire you. And so what these orgs do is find programs to help those individuals kind of navigate and get job ready, etc., and then help them in jobs. And so so I'm working for a bigger not-for-profit that's buying a smaller one so they can kind of pool their resources to help. And M&A for not-for-profits confuses a lot of people because, you know, if you think about buying stuff, that's a economic value, how much you're going to pay for it. This is about mission. And the first question you got to ask is, how do you continue the mission? Not how much money do you get from the deal? Right. Yeah. So anyway,
these are people, and I would assume in the M&A of these type of situations, these are people with big hearts. They see value in what's already being done, and they say, "Hey, we can't let this drop by the wayside. What can we do to help to bring them under us so we can continue this great work? You know, what gets cut, what gets kept, that kind of thing." I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, because think about it, right? Because you just talked about people who run a nonprofit. If I'm a big donor, I still feel good about the mission. So how is what I want to support? How does that keep going if that entity closes the doors? So as someone who's running it, you got to figure out, like, how do we keep this work going if the mission and purpose matters that much to me and the folks who want to fund it, right? You know, not to get into the USAID stuff, but a lot of those things, that was mission-based work, and the government was funding most of it, not all of it, and sometimes those missions needed to persist. How are they going to keep it going? Right. So living here in DC, you know, I put an article out yesterday with a couple of friends, and we already got one bite saying, "Hey, can you help us too?" So it's just an interesting dynamic related to the world we live in.
Excellent. Yeah, I think this entire segment and series of episodes has been very enlightening, from, you know, not just for the people watching, but also people on this podcast. So I think this is probably the most diverse podcast in terms of diversity of thought, in my opinion, and then also backgrounds and just perspectives. I don't think you'll find a more diverse, and this is not from, you know, when we're talking about these, it's not things that we're guessing about necessarily. As you can see, a lot of these people on this podcast have a lot of experience, a lot of direct experience in a lot of the topics that we talk about. So thank you guys for giving your perspectives and giving us your backgrounds and letting the people know who you are and what you stand for and where you come from. Okay. Absolutely. So again, we're gonna finish this off with our individual thoughts for this week, and next week we'll get back to regularly scheduled programming and dive into some, you know, we won't be all politics, but I'm sure politics will be high on the meter for the next couple of weeks. But Ken, why don't you just want to start off with your party, your individual thought for the week?
Yeah, and mine is not nearly as serious as the conversation we've had, but I feel sorry for Ty over there, right? First of all, I see the look on his face, and I'm disappointed for Pistons Nation, right? Because that was a winnable game, and then, you know, for it to end the way it did with the New York stealing it and not even getting a shot off, you look exasperated, bro. And
first round too, right? First round.
Yeah, but the Pistons, just like the Lions, you gotta give them props because they've been through a grind of 7 years, and you know, I'm happy with the Pistons. So that's my final thought.
Wow.
Better luck next time. Better luck next time. Yeah. All right. Ray, Quake, you want to go next?
Yeah, I this past week, man, I have had so many people come across on timelines and extended friends that have passed. I want us to really buy into where Hump and Ken are. They have been a lot more proactive than most of us with their health journeys. We need to really think about longevity, right? all the things we talked about in this podcast, it helps no one if we're not here to contribute, right? Whether that's family-based, community, civic, and social organizations, nothing matters if we cannot participate. So let's be a little more conscious about our efforts and what we're doing to make sure we have a quality of life, right? I know I've been guilty of it, and I need to get back to it as well. But as I think about the hows and whys, it all starts with self. You got to take care of self to do anything else. Let that be our nugget for the week.
And it's never too late. It's never too late, Ray. Never too late to start.
For sure. For sure. Rich?
Gentlemen, we all witnessed last Saturday into the draft, the NFL draft, what I feel was somewhat of a travesty. We saw a quarterback that played well, not astonishing, but played well enough that his prospect was supposed to be first round. And I think about some of the reviews. One of the better reports I saw was an interview with Chris Carter, who talked about when he was at Ohio State and how they actually had a class, or they had a department dedicated to them in their interview preparation. And one thing that we talked about today was, interviews. There's nothing wrong with a player being confident, knowing, where he believes he belongs. But I think there is a need for self-awareness when being interviewed by people, to be able to hold it in check, provide what the expected perception for you to carry the banner of, let's face it, quarterbacks get the most money and they tend to lead the organization. So I fault Deion, even though Deion was the one who set up everything for him to even be in the position that he was in. I think there should have been some conversations about, son, let's do this, let's do that. We know your value. Let's keep some of our strategies close to the vest. I know it's Monday morning quarterbacking, but it's obvious that the draft, as one pundit said, has spoken. And I think if he is what he believes he is, we all know that cream rises to the top. And, all he's got to do is kick tail, take names. I would go in under the shortest contract I could, so that when my valuation comes up, I can go get what I deserve and not have any reservations about it. I really feel bad for what played out, but at the same time, I have trouble crying for somebody who's already a millionaire through the NIL. I can't cry for him. All I can do is say, hey, get out there, kick butt, take names, and let's see where the chips fall after that. And I'm talking about Shedeur Sanders.
All right, cool. Fuck the NFL is my thing, but anyway, Hump, you want to go next? They shafted him. That was some bullshit. I can't stand them coaches, man. Hump, go ahead. I'm just saying.
Well, okay. So I'll continue on the theme of sports here. So it's May 1st, and in 1920, the Negro National League was founded by Rube Foster, and he held his first game. Now, this was considered the first successful professional baseball league for African Americans. There have been others that started, but this was considered the first one. And you had Cool Papa Bell out there, you had Satchel Paige. But given we just passed the anniversary of Jackie Robinson being allowed to play in the major leagues, April 15th, 1947, think about the time and the talents that were dismissed, and think about the times and spent of perfecting the game what would the record books look like? Who would be more popular names across the board? So as much as things have changed, you take a snapshot of talent in this world, in this country, that aren't given that opportunity to be a part of history makers. So as much as things have changed, and as much as things seem to have changed, there's still a lot of things that are the same, no matter what sector of society you're working in or living in or playing in. So let's never forget those things, and let's not let those things be erased from our history, because they are important, and they are constant reminders that we have to continue to strive to make sure that there is a level playing field where everyone can compete.
Well said, brother.
Excellent. Yep. Ty, we know you're down in the dumps right now, but why don't you go ahead and give us your...
Keeping up with the thing. Sometimes getting shafted is by the refs in Game 4 at the end of a game when calls need to be made. And no matter how well you play on the field, on the court, sometimes you get shafted. And so you got to try to play above it, but just knowing that Game 4, corner, foul on the shooting hand.
And sometimes
it happens. I know. And well, anyway, I'm lost. But Kenny Merritt over there crying about his gray hair. You can color that shit, Kenny. With real stress, they are bald headed. A whole lot of bald headed folks that's stressed out. That's way too much hair to talk about how hard you work to have a head full of gray hair. So I'm calling bullshit. Gray hair. Color it if you don't want us to see your stress, color it. Everybody else out here, we see what we got to work with.
I know,
you
right?
crying because I work so hard that my salt and pepper is gray. Color that shit, kid. That's all I got to say.
Hey, look on the bright side, Ty. All your squads they got hope for the future. They got a lot of.
Well, we are sports town again.
Right.
I will say,
except for the Red Wings.
Tigers in first place, but still, that's a
wait a minute now.
I never heard him say it, but apparently, Paul, he said it. That's some bullshit.
All right. Well, my part shot. I didn't know what it was going to be at first, but I think I'm going to play this video because like I said, fuck Richard Hayes, shit on my son personally. I think so. I'm going to show you a video of where he started, where he finished, and all the work we put in, just so you can feel my pain. Right?
Okay.
So let me see if I can play this video.
Who is Zion Fleming?
He is a son,
I put a lot of time into this shit too.
A scholar.
I remember this.
a free spirit.
Send me a copy of that first picture.
Zion's football life started off the same as every other football player in America. Flag was his initial introduction into football, and then it was on to Little League football. He just wanted to be on the field and say he was a football
player. The fact
player.
that you have the footage.
Zion mostly played at the center position.
Memories, man, memories.
But that is where Zion's story starts to take a turn. At his second flag practice, Zion said,
Daddy, I'm going to try for quarterback.
even though Zion played center and had never expressed interest in another position, his dad's response,
Okay, cool.
to our surprise, he was one of 2 players chosen to play quarterback for his team, and he ended up playing quarterback for his team most of that season. However, that team didn't win a game. That being the case, it taught him a valuable lesson. Always play to the end and never give up.
After that season, Zion decided that he didn't want to just be a football player, he wanted to be a quarterback. As parents, we told him that if he put in the work, we would help him as much as possible to achieve his dreams. Running in the backyard evolved into personal trainers, mom and dad going to the field to help with 3-step drops transitioned to quarterback coaches, both near and far. And flag became 7v7.
That path is not unusual in itself, But Zion is not your traditional quarterback. There has always been a hurdle he has had to overcome, which may be the largest hurdle in football, the eye test. You play quarterback, and wow, I thought you were a linebacker. And even the harsh, you ain't no quarterback, had been common phrases heard throughout his journey that never stopped him. Hours and hours on the field working on drops, technique, and running to get in better shape. He wanted to refine his craft.
It paid off. He got better and better and better, and it showed on the field. He never ran from competition either, from Little League to middle school to lettering on the varsity football team as a freshman.
We also knew that having skill and understanding of the game from the neck up would be very important. That being the case, we tried to expose him to the best coaching available. Highly structured individual and group coaching helped him to sharpen his skill set and expand his mental approach to the game. He also made some great memories along the way.
I've also had to work through disappointment and heartbreak. Cutting my knee open the night before my first start as a quarterback for my youth team. Having to bide my time behind older, more seasoned players in middle school. Breaking my foot twice before what many thought would be my breakout season as a high school player. Those situations made me a better player and person, and I overcame. That cut didn't stop me from leading my team to win over the team that beat us when I didn't play. Sitting behind a more seasoned player didn't stop me from leading my middle school team to an undefeated season at the start of the season after. That twice broken foot and almost 6 months off didn't stop me from leading my team to a come from behind win over a rival in my first game back to spark our offense that season.
Who is Zion Fleming?
Zion isn't just a son,
A brother,
A free spirit.
an angler.
a leader,
Who am I? Dedicated, hardworking, enthusiastic. But simply put, a quarterback.
Nice.
Love it.
I like
Well
that.
done. Well done.
Now, you know,
Good
coaches
job.
don't give a fuck about that, man. Coaches be like, oh, we don't care about that shit. But anyway, that sports journey, I just wanted to talk some shit about that, man. I'm still so wild about that, man. If I see Richard Hayes in the street, I hope
You
he damn
think?
comes up to me and says something.
I'm
Yeah,
glad
I
my
hope so.
last name ain't Hayes. I tell you that.
Dog. I've been building this up for about 4 years, but I'm like, anyway,
We can tell.
that just
tell.
kind
I
of,
slap a motherfucker.
you know,
You-
Richard's
you mad?
son made it. Hey, I was, dog.
You mad, huh?
You
You
damn
mad?
right. For sure. You damn right. But either
Hey,
way,
but-
that whole journey was, I can't even trip, man. We had a lot of family experiences, things we never, it kept us close. We drive to Louisiana, we went out to California. We had great times just pursuing that. So I can't trip on it for that.
Find the positive.
as a-
Find the positive.
Yes, as a parent, you're always going to be upset about some things, but Zion learned a lot of good things on those journeys that are going to stick with him the rest of his life that should help him, in a
Just
positive
think,
way.
when he blesses you with a grandson, y'all gonna have.
Hey,
I'm
hold
telling you. I'm telling you.
up,
One
hold
day,
up, Rich.
One day you gonna have a
Hold
grandson.
up.
Paul.
Exactly. Wait a
one-
minute.
One day,
dog,
when he
we need to
one
hold
day
up.
when
Hey,
he
Rich,
blesses you with a grandson,
Rich,
the learning curve
Rich,
will be so much
Rich.
shorter.
Everybody ain't looking forward to that, man. If you decide you
I'll
want
tell
to
you
kids,
what,
I'm straight.
you doing all that over a son. I hate to see you had a daughter.
Hey,
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
Lord.
Like, look, hey, yeah.
Hey, look, man. I never even thought about having kids. I mean, I've never even really crossed my mind until it happened. So,
You know what he makes me think about? Tyrese Halliburton's dad getting up in Giannis's face.
I wouldn't have done that, man. He rich, man. What he mad about? They lost a game or won a game. I'm like, dog, shoot. If I was making that type of money, I wouldn't care.
But if you
Anyway.
see Coach Richard Hayes, you gonna do that. So what's the difference?
Yeah, because I know he was the only sticking point, and he know a ton of people I know. Like, man, I know people that was like, dog, you should have told me. He would have just put him on the team. But I was like, nigga, he should have played. I saw who they took.
Hey,
He
Paul,
should
you
have
could have
fucking
smacked him.
played.
He wouldn't have done that.
And that shit still irritates the shit out of me, man.
Tell.
Anyway, that's my final thought. I don't know how much that's gonna make it to the year.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I don't know how much of that's gonna make it to the. All of it might depend on how I feel. Shit,
You had to get it out. So I'm.
and
We
that
here
still ain't
for you,
all-
brother. We here for you. I
Yeah.
enjoyed this one.
Hold me back.
I
Hold me
really
back.
enjoyed this. This was nice. Just hearing everybody's journey.
Yeah.
It makes me want to step it up even more. So,
yeah. So what I might do is
I
Finish
kind of feel
strong.
bad. We got to go back to the whole relationship with Rich, but it's been a good run. It's been a good run.
So you feel bad?
I feel bad because hey, the blood pressure down, but hey.
Oh man. Well, back to normal programming next week. I'm sure we'll have a wonderful show. Thanks everybody for being as in depth as you were, and we'll get back at it next week.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night, brother.
Enjoy the vibe.
All right, brother. Take it easy. You too, Rich.
Keep it live. And take a sip.